A long time ago, in the quiet land of Kumana, there lived a man called Ekene. His name meant one who receives praise, and truly, praise followed him like a shadow. Ekene was known in every corner of the region for his jaw-dropping handsomeness. His deep, glowing ebony skin gleamed under the sun like polished stone, and his eyes sparkled like the river Nya at dawn. Villagers often stopped what they were doing just to stare, yet Ekene's heart was swollen with pride. He believed that no living soul could compare to him. Each day, he strutted through the village of Ofutu with his chin raised, ignoring everyone who greeted him. Children would wave, elders would nod, farmers would pause to smile, but Ekene never looked their way. "Why should I bother with such ordinary people?" he would mutter. Some villagers brought him gifts, ripe mangoes, fine woven wrappers, even handmade sandals, hoping to win his favor. But he rejected them all with a smirk. "I deserve someone rare," he told himself. Suitors came too, hopeful and sincere. Some were traders with gold to offer, others were humble palm wine tappers with kind eyes. But Ekene dismissed everyone. "You're wasting your time," he once told a soft-spoken woman who offered him a basket of hibiscus flowers. She walked away in tears. Ekene didn't flinch. One morning, as golden rays filtered through the raffia roofs, Ekene grew restless. He set off into the forest, away from the voices he considered beneath him. The air was cool and heavy with the scent of wet leaves and wild ginger. Birds chirped unseen. Ekene felt at peace. Here, he didn't have to deal with adoring eyes or desperate gifts. As he wandered deeper into the forest, he came upon a hidden lake. It was like a secret held by the earth, perfectly round, with water clearer than any he'd seen. It reflected the canopy above like glass. Ekene knelt beside it, curious. When he looked into the still water, his breath caught in his throat. For the first time, he saw his reflection, not blurred by river currents or broken by puddles. It was perfect. He gazed at the face in the water, his own face, as if seeing true beauty for the first time. "This," he whispered, "this is the only person worthy of me." The reflection smiled. He raised his hand. The image did the same. A strange flutter filled his chest. From that day, Ekene returned every morning. The villagers noticed his absence, but he didn't care. He had found the one being who truly matched him, his reflection. He sat by the lake for hours, speaking to the image as if it were a friend. "You're flawless," he would say. "You understand me?" The reflection never replied, but it always followed his every move. Ekene began to feel something like love. Days rolled into weeks. Ekene stopped answering calls from his parents. He didn't visit the market. "They wouldn't understand," he told himself. "They don't know what true beauty is." He became completely absorbed in the lake, whispering to his reflection and smiling as if in conversation. The villagers began to whisper, "Has he gone mad?" But Ekene didn't hear them. One night, when the moon hung heavy and full above Kumana, Ekene stood before the glowing lake. Silver light danced on the water, and his reflection shimmered like a spirit. His heart pounded. "I've made my decision," he said aloud. "I will marry you. No one else deserves my love." Far above in the realm of the divine, the Orisha of wisdom and balance watched him. "Look what pride has done," murmured one. "He loves only himself," said another. "Let us humble him." They decided to act. The next morning, as Ekene stood by the lake whispering sweet nothings to his reflection, something shifted. The water rippled though the air was still. The image moved. On its own. "Yes," it said. The voice was soft, like silk brushing skin. "I will marry you," Ekene gasped. "You can speak," the reflection nodded. "We are meant to be." Overcome with joy, Ekene reached out to touch the water. But the moment his fingers grazed the surface, the lake began to churn. Water swirled into a spiral, forming a glowing whirlpool. Ekene tried to pull away, but the force was too strong. With a scream swallowed by the storm, he was dragged into the depths, spinning, drowning, darkness. Then silence. When he opened his eyes, he lay on dry land. The sky above was a dull grey. The air was still. Ekene sat up, dizzy. The houses around him looked like Ofutu, but eerily quiet. No children laughed, no goats bleated, no smoke rose from cooking fires. Mist drifted through empty streets. He stood slowly, heart racing. On the shore of the lake he saw a figure. It was his reflection, now flesh and bone. It smiled. "Welcome," it said. "We are together now." Ekene walked toward it, stunned. He touched its shoulder, warm, solid. "This is amazing," Ekene whispered. "You're just like me." The reflection nodded. "We are perfect together." And so they began their new life. Two Ekenes, side by side in a silent world that mirrored the village, but held no life. At first, it was bliss. They complemented each other, admired each other's every feature, walked hand in hand through the misty streets. "No one compares to us," Ekene would say. The reflection would grin. "We are flawless." But soon, things began to change. Ekene noticed that the reflection had started doing more than copying him. It was thinking on its own. When Ekene bragged, the reflection boasted louder. When Ekene frowned, the reflection snapped. "One day," they argued. "I'm the original," Ekene shouted. "Without me, you wouldn't exist." The reflection smirked. "Yet here I am. Perhaps I'm better than you." Their arguments grew sharper, crueler. Every fight mirrored Ekene's own worst traits: pride, anger, selfishness. Living with someone exactly like him became unbearable. "You're impossible," Ekene shouted one evening. "I am you." The reflection snapped. "If you hate me, you hate yourself." The words hit Ekene like thunder. He began to crumble. "What have I done?" he whispered, but the reflection only stood there, silent, smug, and waiting. One morning, in that silent world where shadows never changed and winds never blew, the reflection narrowed its eyes at Ekene. "I am you," it said sharply. "If I disgust you, maybe it's because you disgust yourself." The words hit Ekene like a drumbeat in the dark. He stepped back, stunned. Deep within, he knew the reflection was right. But he wasn't ready to face that truth. So he ran. At sunrise, he walked away from the still lake, through the fog-covered streets of that hollow place that mimicked Ofutu, yet lacked its soul. He searched for a way out, a path, a crack, a gate, but nothing changed. Behind him, steady as a shadow, the reflection followed. "You can't run," it said calmly, walking barefoot without making a sound. "I'm inside you." Ekene stopped beneath a twisted old tree and dropped to the ground. He buried his face in his hands. "What have I done?" he whispered. That night, for the first time since he had fallen into this world, Ekene dreamed. In the dream, he saw his village, the real one. He saw the grey-haired elders who used to bless him as he passed, even when he ignored them. He saw little children waving and laughing, once delighted just to be near him. He saw the gentle suitors, both men and women, who had come to him with pure hearts, only to be dismissed. Their faces held warmth, forgiveness, hope. When Ekene awoke, his chest ached. He sat up slowly, the mist curling around him like smoke. Guilt gripped his heart like a tight knot. "I have been cruel," he said aloud. So cruel." High above, in the sky that watched all things, the ancients sat. One spoke. "He is beginning to see." Another replied, "But his journey is not over." And so the trial deepened. That day, the reflection grew crueler. It mocked Ekene's thoughts, echoed his fears, and pointed out every weakness. "You're not perfect," it said. You never were. Ekene clenched his fists. For a moment anger rose, but instead of shouting he breathed deeply. "You're right," he said quietly. "I have many flaws." The reflection blinked. Something shifted. Ekene did not argue. When the reflection scowled, he remained calm. When it threw cruel words, he answered gently. Slowly, like clay softening in. Warm hands. The reflection's cruelty began to fade. It still mirrored him, but now it mirrored growth. They began to walk together, not as enemies, but as uneasy companions. For the first time, they spoke without venom. They listened. They shared silence. Ekene saw himself, the good, the bad, the selfish, and the learning, and did not turn away. He began to speak of things he had never voiced. The fear of being unloved, the emptiness that fame brought, the pain of being worshipped but never understood. The reflection, to his surprise, listened. One day, while sitting beside the lake, Ekene said, "Maybe I was wrong about everything. True beauty, it isn't what the eye sees, it's what the heart holds." The reflection nodded slowly. It had become quieter, softer. Its eyes no longer sparkled with arrogance, but shone with thought. A weight lifted from Ekene's shoulders. Then, one morning, as they walked side by side, the sky above them began to shift. The dull clouds that had hung unmoving now parted like a curtain. A warm, golden light poured down, gentle and alive. The reflection turned to him. "You have learned what the ancients wished you to understand." Ekene's brows furrowed. "What are you saying?" The reflection smiled sadly. "Your pride and selfishness brought you here, but now you've changed. You're ready to return." Before he could answer, the ground began to shake beneath his feet. The lake's surface bubbled, rising into a spiral. It formed a swirling portal, bright and humming with energy. Ekene's eyes filled with tears. "Will I ever see you again?" The reflection shook its head. "No, but I live inside you now. Not as a voice of pride, but a whisper of truth. Remember, beauty lives in kindness, not in mirrors." The wind grew stronger, tugging at Ekene's robes. "Go," the reflection urged. "Live well." Ekene nodded, his heart heavy and full. He stepped into the whirlpool, light, wind, silence. Then, birdsong. Ekene opened his eyes to find himself lying beside the very same lake in the forest of Kumana. The air was fresh, scented with rain and wild jasmine. The trees danced gently. In the wind, above, birds chirped as if nothing had ever happened. He looked into the lake. Only the sky and trees looked back. His reflection, that speaking, judging, loving image, was gone. Ekene touched his face. It was real, warm, alive. He smiled, not the proud, smug smile of before, but a gentle, grateful one. He stood and began the journey back to Ofutu. The path he had once walked with arrogance now felt new. He noticed the rustle of dry leaves, the sparkle of dew on spider webs, the way a squirrel darted across a log. The world felt alive, and so did he. Every step felt like a prayer. By the time he reached the edge of the village, the sun was high. A few children playing by a mango tree paused, their eyes wide. An elder fetching water looked up and gasped. "Ekene?" someone whispered. He smiled. "Yes." The village stirred. People peeked from doorways. Farmers set down baskets. Slowly, the crowd gathered. "He's back," they murmured. Ekene had returned, and this time his heart had come with him. From that day forward, something in Ekene had truly shifted. The proud young man, who once looked past every soul in the village, now stopped to greet them, his voice soft and sincere. "Good morning," he said to an elder woman as she arranged yams by her stall. She blinked in surprise, then nodded slowly. "Good morning, son." Children ran to him, their laughter rising like birdsong. Ekene crouched to hug them, his heart swelling with a strange, warm joy he hadn't known in years. "I've missed all of you," he told them, and this time he meant every word. The people of Ofutu were stunned. They whispered among themselves, watching the man who once turned his back on them now carry water for old men, lift baskets for traders, and play chase with barefoot children in the red dust of the square. He listened, really listened, to stories of the young and old, tales of harvests, of lost goats, of dreams and heartbreaks, stories he had once ignored as unworthy of his time, and the more he gave, the more his heart healed. "It is like he's been reborn," the villagers said. Ekene felt it too, not the thrill of beauty, but the peace of purpose, not admiration, but connection. But the greatest change came on a quiet afternoon when he helped a bent old man carry firewood back to his hut. Outside the hut stood a woman about his age, weaving a mat beneath the shade of an udala tree. She looked up and smiled. Her name was Awele. She wasn't the most beautiful woman in Ofutu, but her eyes held calm. Her smile was gentle, and she spoke with the kind of grace that made flowers seem to bloom brighter around her. "Thank you, Eken," she said. "You're different from how I remember." "I'm trying," he said honestly. "I want to be." They talked of little things, of hard days, of how the rain always smelled sweeter after a thunderstorm. And in Awele's company, Ekene felt something bloom inside him, not pride, not obsession, but peace. She never brought up his past. She didn't flatter him. She simply encouraged him. "You're already becoming a better man," she told him one day. "Don't stop." They spent time together, planting vegetables behind her father's compound, teaching children to dance during festivals. Sitting under the stars, sharing roasted plantain and laughter, she showed him the joy in silence, the power of kindness, the freedom in being flawed. One night, as the sun bled orange across the sky, Ekene held her hand. "Awele," he said, "I've learned what beauty really means. You've shown me that. Will you be my wife?" She looked at him, eyes wide. Then slowly she smiled. "Yes, Ekene, I will." Their wedding was a festival of colors. Drums echoed through the hills. Women danced in wrappers dyed in deep blues and fiery reds. Children tossed petals made from dried hibiscus. The elders placed their blessings on the couple. Laughter swirled in the air like smoke from the celebratory fires, and Ekene, once lost in his own reflection, now stood with someone real, someone who loved not his face, but his growth, his humility, his heart. They built a life together, replastered old homes with clay, dug new wells, planted cassava and melon in the village fields. They taught the little ones stories, not of greatness through looks, but of courage, kindness, and change. "Kindness," Awele would say to them, "is the most beautiful thing a person can wear." The village changed with them. Laughter echoed louder. People helped one another more. A new spirit settled over Ofutu, like the gentle rains that came after Harmattan. Ekene became a symbol, but not of beauty, of transformation. One evening, as the fire crackled between them, Eken shared the tale of the lake. "I thought I was everything," he said, staring at the flames. "And then I met myself. I didn't like what I saw." Owl placed a hand over his. "But you didn't stay that man." "No," he whispered. "I didn't, because of you, and because of what the gods showed me." He never returned to the lake. The man who once measured worth by reflections now measured it by how deeply he could care. And though mirrors still stood in homes, Ekene never lingered before them. When he passed, he would smile, not at himself, but at the memory of who he used to be and how far he had come. His story spread beyond Ofutu. Travelers told it across villages. Parents recited it beside fires. The man who married his reflection, and then his soul, they would say. Years passed. Ekene and Awele aged like fine palm wine, Grey touched their hair, their hands grew slower, but their love never dimmed. One breezy afternoon, they sat beneath the same udala tree where they first met, watching children roll seed pods down the hill. "You've given me more than I ever deserved," Ekene said softly. "And you've shown me how beautiful a kind heart can be," Awel replied. They held hands, their fingers knotted with age, but steady with love. When Ekene passed, the village mourned. Drums were silent that day. Children wore white. Elders sat in circles, sharing stories of his journey, from vanity to virtue, from isolation to love. Awel, though her heart ached, smiled gently as she told the children his tale. "He was once blind with pride," she said. "But when he truly saw, he gave the world his heart." The children listened wide-eyed, and the lake, the sacred mirror where it all began, became a place of learning. Young ones would visit, not to see their reflection, but to ask themselves, "Who am I becoming?" Ekene's name was etched in memory, not for his beauty, but for his kindness, his journey, his courage to change. His life whispered a truth the winds still carry through the trees. Beauty fades, but love and humility last forever. True beauty isn't found in the mirror. It's found in kindness, humility, and the love we share with others. And so, the tale of Ekene and Awele lived on, in songs, in stories, in every act of kindness that made the world a little gentler. If this story touched your heart, give it a thumbs up, leave your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to subscribe for more powerful African folktales.